When it comes to the heavyweight division, there is no spectacle greater than a knockout. A single punch can make history, define an era, or bring tens of thousands of fans to their feet. Today, we are counting down the 7 greatest knockout artists in heavyweight history. These are the men whose fists could end a fight, a career, or an era with a single punch. Hey, welcome back, fight fans. Like I said, we are going to be counting down the 7 greatest knockout artists in heavyweight history. We are not only going to take into account single punching power from these fighters, but also the consistency that they were able to land their big shots in big fights. Now, of course, the heavyweight division especially is filled with terrifying knockout artists. So if your top 7 list differs to mine, make sure to put it in the comments below and get the conversation going. But for now, let's jump straight into my number 7. Kicking off our list at number 7, we have the bronze bomber Deontay Wilder. Now, Wilder has one of the highest knockout percentages of any heavyweight in the modern era, a staggering 42 KOs in 46 wins. The power he had in that right hand was almost mythical. As it was once said about Deontay Wilder, his opponents need to be perfect for 12 rounds, he only needs to be perfect for a single second. But there's a catch. Deontay Wilder's resume seriously lets him down. Every time of asking of facing a top-tier heavyweight, he has not only failed to knock them out, but he's also failed to win. Fury spent over 30 rounds in the ring with Wilder and never stayed down for the count. This limitation keeps Wilder at number 7, but don't let recency bias fool you. That right hand is still one of the deadliest weapons we have ever seen in boxing. Now, coming in at number 6, we have the legendary Rocky Marciano. Undefeated in 49 fights, Marciano's power wasn't just about the strength in his fists, it was also about his mental strength and persistence. Continually, he would come from behind after being down on the scorecards, breaking down his opponent with relentless pressure, culminating in a vicious highlight reel knockout. Marciano's right hand, that he affectionately called his Susie Q, that he used to knock out Jersey Joe Walcott, still remains one of the most iconic punches in the history of boxing. Marciano's punches weren't just heavy, they were relentless, a true testament to his iconic work rate and underrated brilliance. No matter which way you slice it, Marciano needs to be on this list. Few fighters in history have ever struck fear into the heart of their opponents, quite like Iron Mike Tyson did. In his prime, Tyson was a whirlwind of speed, ferocity, and explosive power. His iconic knockouts of Trevor Berbick, Frank Bruno, or Michael Spinks left fans and fighters alike in awe. But Tyson doesn't feature any higher on this list because he was unable to carry his power into the later rounds. He never knocked an opponent out past the 7th. Tyson's career was defined by early destruction, but when the fights went long, his effectiveness clearly waned. Despite this, his ability to end fights in the blink of an eye, and sometimes even before the opening bell, firmly puts him in the top 5 for me at least. Now, coming in at number 4, we have Sonny Liston, possibly the most feared and avoided fighter in the history of the heavyweights. Sonny Liston's jab alone was said to be even more powerful than most heavyweights' power shots. You can see this in his back-to-back first-round knockouts of Floyd Patterson, the ferocious combination of power and skill. Liston's punches weren't wild, they were calculated, each one designed to break his opponent down systematically. He didn't just knock you out, he broke your will to fight. And if it wasn't for the greatest heavyweight of all time coming of age, Sonny Liston could have easily gone on to dominate the heavyweight division for years. Like I said, because he was so avoided, his resume is a little bit thin, but I don't think we can hold that against him too much as it wasn't his fault, and he more than deserves a place in the top 4 in my opinion. Now, coming in at number 3, we have Ernie Shavers, the man that Muhammad Ali himself said was the hardest puncher that he ever faced. Ali wasn't alone. Larry Holmes and pretty much every other fighter who shared the ring with Shavers said that he was the hardest puncher that they ever fought. His knockdown of Larry Holmes was probably the hardest punch in the history of boxing not to score a knockout. If you just take pure raw power into account, Ernie Shavers will probably top this list, but he did lack a lot of the fundamental boxing skills to be able to consistently land his devastating shots against some of the top tier opponents that he faced. So that holds him back slightly, but just purely on anecdotes and testimonies alone, we have to put Ernie Shavers in the top 3. Coming in at number 2 and narrowly missing out on our top spot, we have Big George Foreman. Now, in his prime, George Foreman's power seemed to defy the laws of physics. He could easily break down some of the toughest fighters. His 2-round demolition of Joe Frazier remains one of the most brutal displays ever seen inside the squared circle. At the time, George Foreman was considered unbeatable, and just like Sonny Liston, if it wasn't for Muhammad Ali, George Foreman probably would have gone on to have one of the most dominant runs in heavyweight history. He also proved the old saying of power is the last thing to go for a heavyweight when he came back years later as a 45-year-old man, knocking out Michael Moorer to reclaim the heavyweight title, still to this day the oldest man in the history of the sport to do so. Although most people consider George Foreman to be a simple slugger, his boxing skills are actually extremely underrated as well, evident with the fact that he was able to knock out some of the greatest heavyweights of all time with ease. Without a doubt, at least George Foreman deserves second place on this list. So before I give you guys my top pick, let's go over a quick list of the honorable mentions that narrowly missed out on my top 7. You've got the likes of Joe Frazier, the Klitschko brothers, Riddick Bowe, Jack Dempsey, Lennox Lewis, all of whom were some of the hardest punchers to ever grace the heavyweight division, but like I said, just narrowly missed out. Now, of course, if you guys disagree with me and you think one of these guys should be in the top 7 instead, put it in the comments below. But for now, let's get to our top pick. At number 1, coming in at our top spot, we have the Brown Bomber, Joe Louis. Now, it wasn't just Joe Louis's power that made him the greatest knockout artist in history. It was his flawless punch technique and delivery system. He was a master craftsman. Each punch flowed like poetry, each one setting up the next with precision and purpose. His rematch with Max Schmeling in 1938 wasn't just an iconic knockout, it was a 2-minute masterpiece of controlled destruction. Lewis's blend of speed and power, and most importantly accuracy and technique, set a gold standard of what a knockout artist should be. He was by far as well the most complete knockout artist, being able to knock you out in the 15th round or just after 2 minutes like he did with Schmeling. He reigned for over a decade, longer than any other heavyweight champion in history, and knocking out nearly every man he ever faced in the process. Joe Louis is one of the greatest fighters of all time, and for me, the greatest knockout artist in the history of the heavyweight division. As the old saying goes, a single punch can change the course of any heavyweight fight, and these 7 men demonstrated that more than anyone else. Do you guys agree with my list, or do you think I left some significant names out? What is your favorite knockout of all time? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you like the video, hit the like button, hit the share button. And if you want to keep up to date with all the great boxing content, support the channel and help it grow, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Like I said, we're going to be coming out with these top 7 lists, career reviews, fight previews and reviews. We got all that coming up very soon, guys. But until then, peace.